Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game rules by Chaos. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. While we try very hard to stick to language for all ages, listeners should know that this podcast may include mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., that may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your keeper. Thank you for joining us again in another episode of the Old Ways podcast. I'm your keeper, Keeper Michael, and we invite you back to join us again for another episode of Masks of Nyarlathotep. We are plumbing our way through the England chapter. We're going to get started with introductions. So to my right,
it's Lonnie. I'm playing Lawrence Edward Oliver Forsyth, and I've been assisting the police with their inquiries.
Yes. It's always nice to make friends with New Scotland Yard. To his right.
This is Morgan. I play Lillian Lane, and I am a one-woman wrecking ball. I'm going to make Simone stroke out tonight, apparently.
Oh, my. At the end of the table.
This is Jake. I'm playing Jack Doyle, and I am also helping Scotland Yard. Did you hear the air quotes there?
I did hear them. To Jake's right.
This is James. I'll be playing Dr. Sigmund Tattenbach, and today we will be going to the place that hopefully will not make Dunning seem pleasant.
Yes, it has been some time since you've been to a asylum, but it seems a return is imminent. To the doctor's right.
This is Tiffany, and I play Maeve O'Shea, and I'm with the doctor. I don't know if that's like I'm with the DJ, but
it could be. We'll find out. And then last but most certainly not least.
This is Alex. I'll be playing Simone, and I don't plan on stroking a whole lot more than my rifle right now.
Whoa.
I feel like there's a double entendre going on right now, but we're just going to leave it where it is. So we join the investigators as the curtain rises at the hotel. In the early hours of the morning, Dr. and Miss O'Shea are preparing to travel south. So my question to the two of you is a multi-layered one. One, are you making any sort of special preparations? Are you calling ahead? And then two, are you informing anyone else that you are planning on leaving for the day?
Calling ahead is a fantastic idea. So unless Maeve has an objection to it, the doctor is going to call ahead to make, not a reservation, obviously, but, to make sure that someone is expecting us so that we can come in and do things properly.
Well, yeah, because, if anybody's going to call, it makes sense for you to call.
Exactly my thought. And then as for telling anyone, probably, at least leaving a note. The doctor would at least leave a note, like, wedged into Lillian's door if we're awake before they are and out the door.
So, we're going to leave fairly early, but we can probably have breakfast first.
Okay. Perfect.
And that'll give us time to call, too.
You are all at breakfast, enjoying yet another wonderful Waldorf Astoria meal.
I'm drinking coffee, and I look over at Dr. and Maeve. So what's on your agenda for today?
We have a few people we need to try and get a hold of.
We are doing some side investigating, if you will.
Sounds very ominous.
Not really. It's just that I don't need to drag any more people into it.
Sure. Totally yeah. I'm not trying to intrude upon your secondary investigation. Was just making idle chit chat.
Don't worry. Once we have figured out what we are doing, we will tell you all as much as we can about it.
I look forward to hearing about your adventure.
And what are you guys doing today?
Oh, wait. So I said at the end of last game that I was going to be reading more into life as a god to find more out about this Black Pharaoh. Did I come up with any other information?
Well, it's only been a few hours. So.
Oh, okay. I'll read on the train then.
That is a wonderful idea.
Then I can light the train on fire.
I mean, you always could.
Starting early. Jack, Mr. Forsyth, are you at breakfast with us?
Yeah, I'm at breakfast.
Do you have anything exciting planned for today?
I was thinking about swinging by the Blue Pyramid Club. I don't know if it's open or not, but I'd like to at least check it out.
It's been a while since we've been to a club. Hopefully it'll go better than the last time we were at a club.
The Blue Pyramid Club. What is that?
It seems to be a place where Egyptian nationals tend to hang out, conduct business. It seems to be connected to these Egyptian murders in some fashion.
Well, do be careful, everyone.
Well, we're not Egyptian. We'll be fine.
Wow.
Chuck snorts a little bit of coffee out of his nose, quickly wipes it up with a napkin. Yes, I'm certain you will be.
Well, keep in mind, 2 of the victims weren't Egyptian nationals.
If you don't mind me asking, what do they seem to have in common?
As far as I can tell, nothing. But so I need to start digging into it a little bit.
Also, there's an individual we need to possibly try and get a hold of.
Well, if you can get me medical files, things like that, I would be more than happy to go over them for you. But other than that, as you Americans say, I am booked.
You've got a train to catch. Yeah.
Pulls out his watch. Actually, we do, Liebchen. We should go.
Well, and have a safe trip. I'm sure
Thank
we'll talk when you guys get back.
We will.
Yeah, if we find anything interesting.
There's always something interesting wherever we go.
Indeed. Miss O'Shea and the doctor, you're going to pick up and get to the train station and then head for Bedford Asylum, yes?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. You head outside and you feel a bit of a cold breeze as you head out the doors and head down not too far to the train station. It seems that the grip of gray has really taken hold here in the London area. And as the first few pitter-patters of water begin dropping from the sky, you land at the train station and then find a place to relax while you wait for your train. There's definitely an air around London this morning that it's almost a feeling of agitation amongst the people here. You can tell that people are tired of the gray and the rains and the cold. It's begun to seep into your bones. Even your hip is a little sore this morning, Doctor. You're having a hard time sitting.
I'll probably stand and lean against a wall or an archway then, with aid of my cane.
The train arrives, and you pay the fare and hop aboard. With the train under your feet, the ride to Bedford Asylum is relatively straightforward. It's just a pretty clear shot south for a while. Miss O'Shea, as you're tucking yourself into a seat and preparing to read more on Life as a God, why don't you give me a library use roll?
That is a 15 out of 89.
That is an extreme success. You read one of the sections of Life as a God. So, Life as a God, as you kind of get back into it, was written by a man named Crompton. He had a pretty wacky life the last time that you read this. You kind of went through it a little bit, I think, on the ship over. In one of these passages, he is talking about a vision that this dark pharaoh granted him.
Right, I have the notes on that.
He has several of these visions.
Oh.
Several of them throughout the book. And they're very, very detailed. How this dark pharaoh was going to return, and he would walk with Crompton as a god over the ashes of the Empire of Men. And it's in these passages that you start seeing references to, again, to Neferka. And then you also see Nefren as well. And it's almost as if he may have made a spelling error, but you're not sure. The names seem to be interchangeable.
Okay.
You don't see any direct references to some of the items that Jack brought up. You don't see any direct references to this Nyarlathotep. But you do begin to see similarities between the caricatures that they're talking about. So a lot of the elements of the information you picked up about Nyarlathotep seem to be almost mimicked in this dark pharaoh that Crompton talks about.
So they may be one and the same?
It's entirely possible. Now, you're someone who has a deep-seated knowledge base of the occult. And so it's not unheard of for deities to be talked about even through different time periods and retain those similarities. Egypt is rife with deities that happens to.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, so I guess then I have to figure out, is it a regional? Would the name have changed because the belief moved to a different region, or because there's been enough time?
It's entirely possible that the former is true, considering that Crompton came back to England to start his own group. And so maybe he was Anglicizing the name of Nefrenka to Nefren, so that way it was a little bit easier for native English speakers to pronounce it. But during your ride up, you come across another passage that strikes you, and that is, he talks about the symbols of the cult again. He talks about the inverted ankh, and he talks about a spike club.
Okay.
He talks about that in their rituals, that these heinous rituals that he performed with this cult in Egypt, that on several occasions they flayed the flesh of men that they captured on the street with these clubs, and they would use this spiked club to not only dig into the flesh on their backs and on the backs of their legs, but the spikes in them would be used to rip and rend the flesh off, as if to peel them as if they were ripe fruit. And he goes into quite a bit of detail on things that, in your mind, seem very parallel to cannibalism.
Okay. So it is a cult activity. Okay. Now, the ritual that I found that the people were performing were not the same, right? So did the Black Pharaoh reference come from Jack, or did it come from when I looked up the ritual?
Black Pharaoh came from the lookup that you did on the ritual, but
but then it also ties into the way that Jack was saying people were found murdered.
Right. So from his discussion that he had with the folks at the Petrie Museum, there are some similarities between some of the reference points he used and what your notes here have. And these two are from two different sources, and they seem to point towards the same thing. So you start drawing mental lines between the two.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because I was like, wait, these are going together. Okay. So yeah, I will look over at the doctor. So, I'm going to be like very quiet because I don't want people around us to, eavesdrop. You know the thing that Jack's looking into, Doctor?
You mean with Scotland Yard? Yeah.
Yes. So there was a reference to the Black Pharaoh when I was looking up the ritual that these people did.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like the way that those people were dispatched follows this potential cult. That everybody was, the members were killed off.
Yeah. This is disconcerting. This is the second cult group that we have run into.
I don't think that's going to get any less. I think we'll come across more, considering what Jackson Elias studied mostly.
Well, I suppose you're following his footsteps. You're bound to, encounter trouble now and then. Well, I think we should make haste with our visit today, and then we should get back to London as quickly as possible and try to give them the information that we have uncovered. Who knows?
Yeah.
Perhaps it'll be a missing puzzle piece for them.
Well, at least I know what weapon they used.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Versus us.
A spiked club.
Is
there a picture in this book, Mike?
There is really only a couple of pictures in this book, but
like sketched, I would think somebody.
You do see a sketch of the inverted ankh. It actually is fairly prominent in many pages of this book.
Okay.
It seems as if it's almost a glorification symbol, like you would see in a regular ankh or a cross or a Star of David. Some of the other pictures in here are more hand sketches that the club has sketched out. There are some sketches in the margin lines, but they're nothing that's decipherable as there's no grand artistry in the book at all.
Well, I just wanted to show them what the club looked like mostly.
Yeah, you get a fairly you get a fairly decent view of the club doctor. It seems rather vicious. It seems like a piece of wrought iron that has been molded into a club, and then at the end of it, on the club end, on the one of the faces of the club, there are basically spikes that have been molded into it. Now they're not big and long like you might think of some, fantasy type of ogre. It's that they're actually relatively small.
Okay, like nubs almost.
Yeah.
Like an actual mace, like Morningstar mace.
Yeah, but they're even more diminutive than that.
Okay.
And from a medical perspective, it actually makes it worse for you, because you know that wouldn't necessarily kill on the first strike.
Right. It's whoever gets hit with this is meant to suffer.
Yeah. Are you going to continue reading, Miss O'Shea, while you go up there, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
The doctor is going to go, if they have a refreshment car, and get 2 cups of coffee.
They actually don't have a refreshment car. This is not the Grand Orient Express. So this is just a intra-city type of train.
Maeve and I should have taken the Orient Express. I hear it is actually fantastic.
It is, but you couldn't take it on this path. It doesn't go from a city such as London to say a mental institution or an asylum, as it were, in Bedford. It goes to Paris.
Oh, well, perhaps another time.
Perhaps.
Well, doctor just kind of relaxes and looks at the scenery as it goes by.
Okay. The last note I'll give you on this, on your reading of this portion, Miss O'Shea, it turns your stomach. And it turns your stomach because Crompton gives a rather descriptive passage where he explains how the build-up to the ritual would go. And that included a rather loathsome orgiastic rite with the target of said ritual.
Oh. Okay.
Up to and including creatures that they had brought forth with the Pharaoh of Darkness's blessing, to include them on such orgiastic rites. And there's a passage there at the end of it where he describes a kind of sinuous winged serpent, and you become very unsettled because it reminds you of the Carlisle estate.
Right.
In very close detail.
So there's a picture of the serpent?
There is not a picture of it.
Oh, it's just described.
It is described.
Okay.
And it's described taking part in that part of the ritual before the sacrifice is completed.
Okay.
And now I'll leave you in a sunnier place, Bedford Asylum.
Woo!
We'll shift the camera back to post-breakfast at the Waldorf, and my question to Mr. Doyle and the rest of the crew there is, what's the plan for today?
Well, what's everybody else up to?
Well, you said you were going to the Blue Pyramid Club, and I'd be a damn fool to let you go alone.
that's one. Miss Lane?
So I need to check on the to see if I got any messages from Mr. Wahlmsey back in the States, along with additional funds. And I am also waiting on a phone call from Mr. Kinnery, assistant or whomever from the Penhew Foundation, to meet to discuss my family's large donation or semi-large donation to their foundation, and to just get more information from them on what they do and how they handle things. To lay it out on the table, my idea is to, one, bring in somebody with me, because I'm not going to be with them alone. To meet in a public place like a restaurant or something, and not actually meet at the Penhew Foundation.
Interesting. Okay, so your check at the front desk does reveal that Wahlmsey has cabled back. It looks like it came over about 3 or 4 hours ago, and he has instructed you that if you would go to the Bank of London, that he has sent a message to them and essentially creating an account that should be available to you in a day or two if you need immediate cash funds.
So I need to go create that account, or he is already doing that under my name?
No, it appears that Wahlmsey is having the account created.
Okay.
And that after it is created, you'll be able to access it.
Okay. That is great. Did he have any? I also asked for some additional information regarding the Juju House fire. Was there anything included in that message?
Only at the end of it, the end of the telegram says, no Juju House, no further information on the house.
Okay. Is Jack and Mr. Forsyth still around, or?
I would assume they haven't left yet.
Right. So I go over to Jack's room. I'm assuming in his room, getting ready, and I knock on the door.
Yes, just a second. Going through the door.
Look, it's Lillian.
Look.
Lillian, what can I do for you?
I just want to let you know that Mr. Wahlmsey has wired us more money, and he is having the Bank of London create an account under my name that we should be able to access those funds in the next couple days. So if we need to do anything additional with that, I can let the rest of the group know next time we are all together. But also, that's not really the reason I actually showed up. So I don't remember if I did make a visit to the Penhew Foundation yesterday, and took a look around and just kind of seeing if they had any items that looked out of place, artifact wise, and I didn't see anything. However, I am expecting a phone call from the Penhew Foundation to meet with Mr. Kinnery. What's his position, Mike?
He's the chief secretary.
It's like the major domo.
He is like a major domo, although they wouldn't use the word major domo. He's like Bib Fortuna, sort of, except not.
He's not the guy that I talked to at the front desk, right? That was somebody else.
No, that was the guy at the front desk who said that he could put you in contact with.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. To discuss with them their expeditions to Egypt, if they're willing to bring civilians with that are willing to pay handsomely. Not saying that we would actually take that trip. How they handle donations from outside sources such as my family. I thought it might be a good opportunity to try to gauge his responses to any questions that we might have, like hearing that there's been quite a few deaths on those expeditions because it's in the papers and whatnot. So I was kind of hoping for some backup on that. I know you were talking about going to the Blue Pyramid Club. Perhaps after you are done, you and Mr. Forsyth are done there, that maybe I could set up a meeting with Mr. Kinnery for tomorrow or something, and if you'd be available to go.
Well, some people there may know my face, and I don't know if it'd be the best for me to be the one to go.
Lillian, do me a favor.
Yeah.
And make me a luck roll.
Get a hard success, 12 out of 49.
Wonderful. You suddenly have an epiphany. In fact, your brain kind of twitches for a moment, and you remember something. You remember a couple of nights ago, it must have been just after you'd gotten back, really, from Derbyshire. But Simone had placed a pretty significant impression upon the group about the Penhew Foundation and how being careful was critical. You think it might be a good idea to get in contact with him if you're going to have any direct contact with people there.
He was going to be a person I was going to contact as well. But yes, based on his mission that he's on, I thought it would either be Jack or Forsyth that would come with me for a lunch or whatever the Jones.
Altogether possible.
I can query with Simone as well and let him know, obviously, what the plan is, and if he'd like to join as well.
Yeah, you know what? I think you should ask Simone. I bet he'd be more than willing to join you in the Penhew Foundation.
With a rifle.
With a rifle. He cannot bring a rifle to the restaurant, like a public. I mean, he could, but
I don't know if this will come in handy at all, but when I was in the Petrie Museum, they had a burial mask that I believe that the Penhew Foundation's been trying to get their hands on for a long time. I don't know if a bit of information might come in handy at some point. Just throwing that out there.
So they're looking to acquire a rare artifact like that.
Yes.
Well, then I will, since you are looking to not have your face seen around places that might already been seen, I will query Simone first, and then if he is unavailable, I will talk to Mr. Forsyth.
Very good.
Well, enjoy your day at the club.
Yes.
What?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, you stay out of trouble too. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you too. And off I go. I skip down the hall.
All right. I guess I want to pause really quick with Jack and ask how you're planning on approaching the Blue Pyramid Club.
Well, I just want to, first I'm going to go there. I don't know if it's going to be open. I don't know what kind of club it is, if it's a nightclub or if it's just more of a, I won't say gentleman's club, but something on that order.
You could potentially ask around about the club.
Well, I just figure I would kind of go there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're gonna head over towards Soho, and you're gonna investigate the area around there. Go to the club itself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we'll have you moving in that direction. Miss Lane, your next stop is to contact Simone at the location he gave you.
Yes. He told me not to go to that location.
That's correct. He did. He was very clear about that.
I do remember he was very clear about not going to that location. And probably dressed as I am, I would look a little out of place anyways. So I will contact him. So I will make my way to the front desk of the hotel because
poor landlady.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I will call the number that Simone left for us to contact him at.
Okay. So, yep, that's the landlady then, yes?
It's the only phone there.
Yeah. It rings a couple of times. The staff behind the desk assist you with making the call. The call rings a few times. You hear the common tone of the telephone system over in the UK, which is quite lovely. And after a moment, there is a click, and you hear a older lady's voice on the phone. You hear, yes, hello?
Hi, I was wondering if Simone was around?
Not at the moment. I don't believe so. I have not seen him come in recently. May I ask who's calling?
This is a friend of his. Could you just have him get in contact with Lillian, please, at his earliest convenience? I have some items some business that we need to discuss.
You sound lovely. Of course. Where should he reach you at? Does he
He knows how to. Yep, he sure does. He knows how to get a hold of me. So, yep. If you could just let him know that whenever you see him next, I would really appreciate it.
Wonderful, wonderful. I've taken the note down here. Thank you, dear.
No, thank you so much. And I hang up the phone.
Yeah, okay. She hangs. I mean, you didn't hear her. You don't hear her hang up, but she does hang up. And then she loads a rifle. No, I'm kidding.
No. She's like that old lady from Deadpool, isn't she? Like
she is. She is. Okay. You've left a message.
Okay, and then I'm assuming the hotel has a bar or something that I can go sit in and
Oh, yes.
and people watch.
You absolutely can people watch. This is a great place for it, too, because the hotel lobby is full of people coming and going, and you get a really great view of it.
And I really enjoy people watching, so I will sit down and take a beat.
You do so. Mr. Forsyth, what are your plans for the day? Or are you heading with Jack?
Well, I was planning on heading with Jack. Like I said, I really don't want him to end up going by himself.
Oh, no? Why not? Okay. So we will head south to Bedford Asylum, where Miss O'Shea and Dr. Tottenbach have stepped off the platform outside of Bedford. Actually, the asylum is not but a far walk from the train station. But as soon as you walk off that platform, the dreary pall of rain picks up. There's a rather dour, squat, bleak building of harsh brick. The exterior of this asylum seems drenched and intimidatingly barren of windows. The edifice itself is surrounded by a tall wrought iron fence, something that, Doctor, you're very familiar with. Most asylums have these. It gives it a sense of true brutalism rather than hospitality. You know, Doctor, that mental health treatment these days is a pretty complicated affair. It's very much, in some circles, seen as a moral failing, although that's not a viewpoint that you likely hold.
Not at all.
But you also know that this is not your hospital. And so knowing what goes on inside its walls is still yet alien to you.
Stop briefly before we enter the gates themselves. Look Maeve in the eyes. Brace yourself, my dear. This might be very unpleasant. I know you have experienced places like this before, but still, they can shake you to your core.
You see that there's a couple of autos that are parked outside. It's got a fairly large horseshoe courtyard. It looks like at one point it was likely used to basically turn around a carriage. So while the time of horses and carriages are mostly in the past here, the wider kind of horseshoe courtyard here gives this place an even more setback and grander feeling. And when you mix that grand feeling with the wrought iron and the brutalism that it depicts, it's a little spooky.
Fun times.
You guys head towards the twin massive doors of the front of the asylum. As you're approaching them, you can see a man in a orderly uniform coming towards you. It almost seems like he has a leather bandolier on. There's a definite leather cross to his uniform. It's a belt and then a shoulder harness almost. And you can tell that attached to it he has a truncheon.
Okay. Step right up to the door then.
Good morning. How can I help you?
Guten Morgen. My name is Dr. Sigmund Tattenbach. This is my associate, Miss O'Shea, and we are here to see one of your patients, please.
Patient, eh?
Indeed.
One moment.
Yeah.
Opens the door, and when he opens the door, he stops for a moment and then turns back, almost as if you were an afterthought, and says, "You can wait inside."
Dankeschön. Gesture Maeve to enter, and then following behind.
Yep.
After the two of you enter, he closes the door behind the two of you, and you're in a lobby. There's a front desk here with another gentleman who's dressed quite a bit like the man who greeted you is, and the man who greeted you points you towards this front desk and says, "If you're here to see someone, they'll be able to help you." And then he turns around and seems to man the door.
Wunderbar. Walk over to the other desk.
You see a similar uniform, but this man's a little bit smaller. And he nods and says, "Don't mind Paul. He hasn't had his coffee."
Oh, I can understand. I am not generally a morning person myself.
So, how can I help you folks?
I am Sigmund Tattenbach. I called a while ago. We are here to see...
Peter Wahlmsey.
Doc makes gesturing fingers for a moment, and then I'm sure Maeve pipes in with the name of Doc.
Oh, yes. I'll reach out to Dr. Walsh. One moment.
Wunderbar.
He does something that you're not expecting. He picks up a phone, and he picks up the candlestick and taps the attending bar a bit, and then you hear him say, yes, tell Dr. Walsh his guests have arrived for this morning. Yep. All right. And then he sets the phone down. The doctor will be up just shortly. If you care to wait, he'll be with you. And when he says he'll be with you and he points to the chair, you hear the first peal of a patient in some sort of distress.
Look at Maeve, raise an eyebrow.
I just shrug.
Not too long after that, maybe a minute or two, a short, relatively gray-haired man steps out from a doorway. Door opens. This gentleman comes out in a suit. He's probably shorter than you are, Maeve. Not that you're short, because we've been over the height that you have, but size 4,000.
Yes.
He comes out and he nods to the both of you. Dr. Walsh, how can I help you? I don't have a whole lot of time.
Dr. Tattenbach, I understand and I appreciate your time. We are here to speak to a Peter Wahlmsey, if it is possible.
I'm not sure Mr. Wahlmsey is available. Now, you said you're some kind of doctor? Doctor of what?
General practitioner, as well as student of psychology.
Where did you study at, doctor?
I give him the name of the school.
So, I am going to ask you, doctor, to make a credit rating roll.
I can do that.
You get
that. Oh my god. 97 over 59.
So that is a critical failure.
Yeah. Wait, is that critical? Because it doesn't say critical on here. It just says failure.
I know. 96 and up is critical. When he asks you what medical school you went to, you literally have a moment of memory. You have a memory problem.
Yeah.
And you stutter for a moment, and then something comes out, and you're not sure what that word is. You're not even sure if it is a word. Right. And he says, I don't have time for any of this. Orderlies, see them out.
Wait, doctor, really? He is a doctor. I don't know what's wrong with him at this moment, but really, I need to speak to him because my father went missing 5 years ago in the U.S., and he was last seen here and had contact with Peter within the last 6 months. And if I'm going to be able to find my father, I need to speak to him and find out where he was going or what happened.
Okay, Miss O'Shea, why don't you make me a persuade roll?
I could even, perform. There's persuade. 34 out of 44.
He takes a look at you for a moment, and you see that he furrows his brow, and well, far be it for me to stand between a beautiful woman and seeing a crazy person. He turns around and heads in deeper. Come along.
I will follow him and grab the doctor by the arm and give him a weird look.
I will go right along with, or the doctor will go right along with her with a sharing the bewildered look on her face.
You guys head deeper in. And as you do, the scene does not get any better. There are some patients here that are truly going through very fraught experiences. It does not appear that any of the treatments, doctor, that they're using, it doesn't appear like any of them are cruel. But there are some definite definite challenges that these patients are going through.
How are the general conditions?
That's what I was just going to ask.
Bedford seems to be, at the very least, clean. While the brutal exterior is enough to put off anyone, it isn't as if the location is a mess. This isn't Dunning by any means. They seem to be taken care of, at least the location for that matter.
So does this look more like the place that my mother's staying at?
It looks a little bit like the sanitarium in Arkham, although...
just like how it's kept up, how it seems more humane, how it's more... just by appearances.
Yeah, you probably would put it on par with something like that.
Okay.
Yep. Dr. Walsh, over his shoulder, says, Mr. Wahlmsey is making exceptional progress.
Oh, that's great to hear.
It was. He came in quite a state. Quite a state. He walks down towards the end of one of these rows, past a common area. He unlocks the door, and you get into where some of the patients are at.
Okay.
When he shows you to the door, he slides the viewing portion of the door open. And you can see that the cell here there's no padding, it's all brick. And you see that there's no restraints on any of the walls. And the bedding here looks fairly comfortable.
So it's not barbaric by any means.
It does not appear so, no. This looks like, in some similar ways, Doctor, you would imagine this is now fairly standardized for the more local asylums. You can imagine some of the places in the countryside are probably not as nice.
But this place is at least par or above par for, this infinitely better than Dunning, and I didn't get to go to Arkham. So yeah, at least there's that.
Now, I will advise you that Mr. Wahlmsey is not, as we should say, always present. He looks at you, Doctor. We are using extensive hydrotherapy, non-invasive, which is non-invasive and quite frankly, somewhat progressive. But he has troubles sometimes with the chills. He may shiver or stutter. That is a normal side effect of the therapy that we're using.
I understand.
Now, the orderly there will be available to you. You can see that beyond the door, when they open this door, there's going to be a set of bars between you and Mr. Wahlmsey.
Right.
He opens the door and then steps aside. He says, I will be down the hall if you need anything.
Wunderbar. And thank you very much for your time.
Of course.
Step a little to the side and let Maeve closer to the bars.
When the door to the cell is opened, revealing the bars and then the inner side of the cell, you see that the orderly that's nearby steps like 2 or 3 steps closer.
Okay.
I make note.
There's a gentleman here. He looks like at one point he was rather attractive. He has stringy blonde hair now. It looks like at one point it was probably kept up fairly well. He has a beard that doesn't seem like it's completely kept up. His once younger face is now lined a little bit with worry lines. He sits against the wall on the floor, no padding underneath him, and he's staring out the cell door through the bars at you, Miss O'Shea.
Mr. Wahlmsey, do you want to speak today?
He looks at you with a pair of eyes that you can tell have seen things they should not have. His voice percolates up with a bit of gravel. Speak? What are the point of words now?
Well, I understand that when you've seen the things that you have seen. However, I need to find somebody that you spoke to or were involved with about 6 months ago when it all happened.
When it all happened. Get him to go away.
Get what?
Get him to go away. He sticks a hand up. You see a somewhat bony right hand point almost straight through you. I'm not saying a word until he goes.
Is he pointing at me?
No, he's not pointing at you.
I turn around.
The orderly is standing against the wall opposite.
I turn around and face the orderly. My friend, it appears he will not be willing to speak when you are nearby. I am a trained medical professional, and I am handy. I will be right nearby. Do not fret. If you could go to the end of the hallway, please, or maybe a little further, just so you are not right in his line of sight. Danke.
You see the orderly take a breath or two before reluctantly moving down the hall. Once he's out of sight,
Little further. Yeah, keep going. There you go. All right.
Peter lowers his arm, and then you see him stand up from his sitting position, and you can tell that he's probably lost a fair amount of weight.
Mike, can I make a medical roll to really give him like a medical once over visually?
Sure, it'll only expose limited information.
I'll wait for him to approach the bars and give me a reason to do it. That's fine. I'll wait.
Okay. He approaches. He kind of walks, and strut's not the right word, but his walking gait is very strange. He seems to almost swim back and forth on his knees. So there's a lot of fluidity to the way he moves forward. You got questions? I got answers. I've seen it.
What have you seen?
I saw the stars. Red, green, yellow. Hotter than the sun.
Do you remember speaking with Neil O'Shea?
He smiles. You can tell that someone took care of Mr. Wahlmsey, because when he smiles, he has a rather fetching smile. You think that if Mr. Wahlmsey was, say, maybe not suffering such a bout of madness, or maybe, lost 20 pounds in a few months, he might be rather fetching. But when he smiles now, you can tell that there is a part of him that is lost. Neil. I know Neil. He's not here anymore.
No, he's not. Where is he?
Last time I saw Neil, we were in the house. We were in that house.
Yeah, what was the address of that house?
Address. He seems to almost snap awake. You look just like him. Has anyone told you that?
Yeah, everybody has.
How do you know him?
He's my father.
Oh. Where is he?
I'm looking for him. I was hoping you would know where he would want to go next.
I don't think he left the house.
Well, then I would need to know where the house is.
I don't know. Richard. He seems to crumple like into a heap on the floor. He calls out, Richard, I'm so sorry.
We are as well.
You see his hands ball into fists, and he seems to hit the sides of his head rather forcefully 2 or 3 times.
I assure you it wasn't your fault.
I admit it. We performed the ritual. It wasn't all my doing, though. It wasn't just me.
No, you had to have 4 people.
Right. He looks up, almost excited. Right. Neil, Richard, Samantha. They were all eager. We were finally going to get beyond.
Where's the house? So I can find him.
It's in the country. He leaps to his feet and comes very close to the bar. He almost like a shark grabs onto them.
I try my hardest not to flinch.
How close is she to the bars?
She's pretty close at this point, I would imagine.
I make sure that I'm standing to the side, but between her and him, right up against the bars. Like, if he's going to grab somebody, I would prefer it to be the doctor rather than Miss O'Shea.
He reaches his hand out, but it's not very fast. It's very slow.
That's fine.
And he turns his palm over almost to show you that he's unarmed. I can't hurt anybody anymore. I don't want to. I remember drawing the circles, lighting the candles, and we chanted for hours. But then everything became a haze. And then I saw the lights. His vision kind of glazes over for a moment.
The red and green and yellow lights?
Red and green and yellow. Red and green and yellow.
How far away in the country was this house?
No more than an hour's time. Samantha would know where it is. I don't remember the drive there.
But didn't you purchase it?
He seems to waver, like back and forth on his heels. Almost like he's dizzy. Yes. The plot, I paid for it. He starts patting his clothes, like...
And I, elbow the doctor, because he's got the book.
Yep, I take out the book.
My book? He almost surges through the bars to get to the book.
Yes, this is your book.
I just need the book. He gestures wildly with his fingers.
Look at Miss O'Shea.
Do you remember where you purchased the house? It doesn't say in your book.
It's not far. It's north of Camden.
Okay, what does it look like?
It's a big, beautiful red house. It's not far.
But you don't remember the address?
It's north of the city. It's on Camden Brook Road. You take the train north, past Regent's Park.
Thank you. And I look at the doctor to give him the book.
I put the book into his hand.
He takes it greedily. And he begins thumbing through the pages with a fervor that would shame a Baptist preacher thumbing through the Bible. Here it is. See? He turns around back towards the cell. I knew it.
What did you know? What do you now have proof of?
He plotted it all from the beginning. It was all a plot. The whole thing. He turns around.
Plot by who?
One of the other students. They plotted. They harvested us. Like sweet turnips taken from a field.
What student was this?
He turns back to the book. You see him take a few pages out, and he begins tearing the pages out of the book. And it's the sudden ripping of paper to you, Miss O'Shea, that is unnerving.
Why are you so upset with your book?
It's the record of what happened.
But it doesn't say much about what happened.
You have to read between the lines. You have to. Didn't Neil teach you to read between the lines? He kind of gestures the book back out towards you.
I'm afraid that you have had more time with my father than I have.
I take the book.
You'd have to reach into the cell to get it at this point. Feeling froggy, Doctor?
Yeah, you know what? I think he is. The doctor was going to make a swipe for it. Actually, not a fast, sudden movement. He's going to make a moderate, deliberate move.
Moderate delivery
As
move.
confident, no sudden movements, nothing to startle him or anything.
All right, so it's still a brawl roll because he's going to end up contesting you.
Okie dokie. Critical success, 1 under 70. I take the pebble from his hand, Grasshopper.
Indeed you do. With a swift and yet subtle enough movement, you dive a hand in and snatch the book. Several of the pages have been ripped out. When you pull the book out, with a rather natural reaction, you look down at the book because it had been ripped. And you notice on one of these ledger pages of this accounting journal, which is all it is, really, you can see that there is a note he has written in the margin here that is a deposit, right? So there's a ton of different minuses all throughout the book. But in this margin note, there's a plus, and it shows a number of 150. You're not sure what that means, but it's after that the initials EG are present.
EG?
Yep.
Okay. I make note 150 donated or given by an EG. That was on a page that was still in the book?
It was.
Okay.
The book is missing about half of its pages now.
All right. I hand it back to Maeve.
I will take it. So you don't think Neil left the house?
No. It's all about the spirit. It wasn't malevolent. We weren't planning anything malevolent. We weren't trying to open up some door to something ungodly. I swear to you, we simply wish to see for ourselves if Neil's plan would work. If proof that what we've been promised by that society was true. I mean, I'd heard of possession before, sure, when a spirit takes a body, but I'd never intended to recreate that, much less be a victim of it. And I know that everybody believes I murdered Keyes, but I didn't kill him. We were friends.
I believe you.
I think he liked Samantha more than me, but it wasn't a reason to kill him.
Mike, do we know Samantha's last name?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
It is Mulberry.
Okay,
It is.
making sure.
So did Neil then enter to the other side?
He did. And something came back. And it took me. It took control of my body. And then I was on top of Richard. And when I woke up, my hands were around his neck and he was coughing and try as she might, Samantha couldn't pull me away.
And then the entity just left you after that?
I felt it leave my body like I was taking off a pair of socks. It slipped just as easily out.
After Mr. Keyes was dead?
Yeah. Poor Richard.
So you were just looking for proof of this other side? Is that what Neil told you?
Neil told us that the ritual would allow him to project himself, his consciousness, miles away. And the books and the information that he'd traded with the society had built up to this, but that he needed our help. Miss O'Shea, make me a occult roll, please.
Yeah, this all sounds very sus, and I don't like it.
Mike, can I make one too?
Sure.
I don't have anywhere near as much as Miss O'Shea does, but I mean, I've been doing some reading.
You have.
59 out of 83.
15 under 35, yeah.
Sigmund, the hair on the back of your neck stands up. You feel a damp sweat grow on your brow. And you get the distinct and chilling sensation that you are being watched.
Casually look around up and down the hallway.
You look up and down the hallway. It's you. There's another orderly down at the far end of the hallway, and then he's working with another member of staff, it seems, to maybe supply a meal. You see the other orderly on the other end, the one you'd asked to move. He's still standing in the place that you had him at.
It's not coming from them. It's coming from somewhere else, isn't it?
You don't know where it's coming from.
While I'm feeling this, I note Miss O'Shea's reactions and the reaction of the gentleman inside the cell to see if they are also responding to anything unseen.
It doesn't appear so. Although Mr. Wahlmsey is regarding you with a different air. He seems to be paying a little bit more attention to you now with his eyes.
Okay. We'll look at Miss O'Shea. Have you ever had the feeling that you are being watched?
Not as of recent. I have had it.
I am having it right now. It's quite interesting.
I'm going to reach into my bag and touch our... You know how we have those stones?
Mm-hmm.
Is it warm or anything?
Yours is a little bit, yeah.
Like warmer than usual?
I mean, you don't go around touching your stone a whole lot, but yeah, it feels a little bit warm. Which is strange because the building here is not at all what you would say well heated.
Right.
Do I see what she's doing?
It's hard to tell. She has her hand in her bag, and that bag has half the Library of fucking Congress in it.
That's true. This is the bag of Alexandria. Yeah.
Yes. Actually, I counted. My current books I have with me, I only have...
Only.
31.
Right.
3,
Right.
4, 5, I think 6 books.
Jesus.
And only one is bound in human flesh.
Only. But yeah, you can feel that the stone has definitely gotten a bit warmer.
If I, peek in my bag, is it, glowing or anything?
It seems to have moved to much more of a magenta-ish shade. It almost reminds you of what Mr. Forsyth's stone looks like. Although not completely.
But did it, when we were looking for Forsyth, did it feel and look like this too?
It didn't. It felt warmer, but it didn't change color.
Okay.
Wahlmsey's fingers wrap around the bars, and he seems to pull himself a little bit closer to them.
I closed my bag. I think your friend has come to visit.
His body seems to shake, almost as if he has an uncontrollable shiver.
Just gonna stand there and look at him.
You hear the door at the end of the hall creak open. As you're looking at him, Miss O'Shea, his irises bloom. They divide into a multicolored scheme. And instead of one iris, you begin to see 3. Red, yellow, and green. And each one moves independently. Each one traces the outline of your form outside the cell. And he says in a clear and deep voice, "I'll be seeing you soon."
Mike, do I see who opened the door at the end of the hallway?
When you look left, you see that an orderly has opened the door. And it's to the approach of Dr. Walsh. Miss O'Shea, as you watch this scene unfold in front of you, the flesh on Peter Wahlmsey's body ignites.
Like on fire?
Like someone has dumped a can of kerosene onto him. And Peter Wahlmsey begins screaming for his life.
I back away from the bars and push her back against the opposite wall.
He screams and screams, and you see him in the cell flail his body against the bricks as if it was his only last and dire hope to put himself out. The flames continue. The orderly, the doctors begin rushing towards the cell door. The bedding catches fire. And that's a sanity roll for you too.
Oh, absolutely. 73 over 68, so the doctor fails it. All right.
Yeah.
Me too.
All
74
right.
out of 50.
A couple of failed sanity rolls.
I think we want them to fail, if I remember right, though.
No, not this one.
No.
No, we want to come under this one.
Okay, so you each lose 3 sanity.
I have so much to lose.
I don't want you. I'm okay with that. That's
So the orderly and the doctor, Dr. Walsh, step in. You see them fidgeting with keys to try to get the actual cell door open. As they do, the other orderly down the hall is calling for help. The orderly in front of you with Dr. Walsh begins to call for water. And the bedding and the mattresses and the padding that had made this cell livable become a conflagration.
I start pulling Maeve away from the room and towards the exit.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
going to say I'm going to turn and leave.
I think now is an opportune time for us to be leaving.
Yeah.
The screams of Peter Wahlmsey chase you from Bedford Asylum. And now we'll move the camera. Simone, why don't you give me an update as far as your goings on there in your nest?
Sure. So I think when we left off, I had just gotten back from calling the team and returned to my perch. Would have made sure that everything's tidied up so that I could get a nap in before people generally start arriving at about 6 a.m. last we checked. Just want to make sure that I'm awake and aware, and this will basically be another day of kind of passive monitoring of the 5 to 7 other people that are not Gavigan and Kinnery.
Yep.
Now, I had some thoughts. Considering that Kinnery is essentially like activated as far as I'm concerned now, I'm going to pay pretty close attention to him all day. But I'll try to catch a nap sometime in the middle of the afternoon. But my plan is to keep an eye on Kinnery and determine whether or not he is like following his on-site schedule. If he leaves suddenly, I will make an effort to follow him. Otherwise, I'll be waiting until the end of the night, at which point I was going to follow him to wherever he goes after work, whether it's home or what have you. And I kind of wanted to get an idea as to what he does, if I can find a location to scout his residence or wherever he ends up. So I guess it would really depend on what he ends up doing, but that's pretty much the day. And I guess if we assume that goes okay, I was eventually going to head back to my place because I'm like 3 days in and I'd like to bathe and prepare, since there has been a sudden, perhaps Lillian wrench in a lot of the potential planning. So I want to make sure that I'm prepared for whatever happens at that point. So yeah, that's kind of the lowdown on what's going on. That's my day.
Okay. So keeping a watch today is, for the most part, very similar to what has happened previously. You do catch a nap, although you do get something to bite on about midday-ish or so.
Mm-hmm.
So Kinnery does move at one point after a truck arrives at the back gate. This is very interesting.
Is this in the middle of the day?
Yep.
Okay. I will try to maneuver a bit. I know I can't use the back balcony because it's like business hours, but I do want to see if I can get a nice view of the rear area from where I am.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you should be able to, relatively speaking, get a look at the truck.
Okay.
It's dark blue. You see that the words Ferris and Sons are painted on the side. Over the next few minutes, some men. You see a mix of, say, probably what you would consider English. There do appear to be some Arabs there as well, and maybe a few Indian men. They exit the truck, into the backyard, and a large heavy crate is brought out into the rear door. You see the men haul it onto the truck. So this is being taken from the Penhew Foundation onto the truck.
Right.
And then they drive off.
Now, there's only an alley back here, so it's not like they could really back out. So they're just going to have to keep going, I'm guessing, whichever direction they head.
They really don't have a choice but to keep going.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll make a note of that. And I mean, does that name ring any bells? Like, does it occur to me, have I seen them before roaming about? Like, have I seen their trucks previously? I don't know if they're like were the guys uniformed or were they just kind of?
No. They were just guys. You can give me I will give you a luck roll.
Sure.
To see if you've seen it before.
With a 7 out of 45, it's extreme success.
Very good. You do remember the last time you saw this truck.
Oh, yeah.
It must have been, 4 months ago? And it was before you left for France. You saw it down at the Limehouse docks.
Okay, so that's not far from where I'm staying.
Right.
Okay, good. That's convenient. So that's kind of where they're based out of?
You're not sure, but when the truck leaves the back alley behind the Penhew Foundation,
mm-hmm.
they appear to be going to a major thoroughfare, which would take them basically along the Thames to go back to Limehouse.
Okay. Well, it's an easy. I mean, even if it's not a bad lead.
I mean, other than that, most of your day is relatively similar. Kinnery does his normal things for Gavigan, and then eventually they close up shop.
When last time Kinnery left, did he walk? Did he take a cab? Like, how does he get around?
No, Kinnery goes to the train station and probably gets on the underground.
Okay. So my plan is I already want to be on the ground by the time I think he's going to be leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And I will be dressed essentially as I have been, but I'll be street sweeping instead with my broom because I have a broom.
Right.
I'll keep my hat low, keep my shoulders slumped. But yeah, I'm gonna go street sweeper at least until I have to board the train, and then I guess you can let me know. But I want to shadow this guy. Yeah, I want to shadow Kinnery.
If you shadow Kinnery the whole way home, he doesn't go too far, actually. He heads what appears to be, he gets on the tube and goes north towards Soho. And it's at that point that he exits the tube network and then goes back up top and walks to what looks like a 3-flat in Soho.
Okay. I will watch the building to see when I see lights.
You do.
And then I'm going to look for a potential location to get a better view. Does he live on the top floor?
No, second floor.
Second floor. Is it difficult to find a vantage point, or I don't know how close together the buildings are in Soho.
You can get, it's pretty tight actually.
Okay.
So not a ton of room here, but you could get across the street and look up into the building. But getting a level vantage point is going to be acrobatics or fire escape work, one of the two.
I'll give it a little bit of time. I guess what I'm trying to figure out, and I don't know whether he has like curtains or whether the windows are, but I'm trying to get a feel for whether or not he is working throughout the night or whether he's kind of like, whether he turns in early. So I will try to get at least a view after I think that he's kind of settled in. And if that means I have to find a fire escape either like down an alley or across a ways to climb up, I will.
Okay.
I will try to be inconspicuous about it.
Yeah. No, go ahead and give me a climb roll.
Yeah, ouch. Okay, that's a failure with a 90 out of 49.
Okay.
Last fire escape.
Your attempt to get out of the fire escape brings on a ton of creaking and whining, and suddenly there are cats in the alley meowing.
Okay.
You see a bunch of other lights come on.
I will dust myself off and put my hands in my pockets and head back out to the main thoroughfare.
Okay. Seems
I won't be
safer.
whistling, but
Of course not.
I just kind of let the racket play itself out.
Mhm.
And I guess I start heading back to the tube so that I can make my way home.
We will put you on your way home that evening, and then we'll wrap this session here. And when we start up next week, we're going to get a direct view of Jack and Mr. Forsyth's misadventures or adventures at the Blue Pyramid Club. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week.